My name is Nick, and I host Off-Gassing, a scuba podcast, which I'm very excited to hopefully share and release more episodes soon. But let's chat with our other people here.
Hi, my name is Anand. I'm based on Perhentian Islands. I own a dive center called Anti-Gravity Divers, and I train dive instructors as my main job. So I'm a PADI course director, and yeah.
Okay, hello everyone. So my name is Vincent. Probably see me every now and then. I used to work for SSI Service Center, but currently I start my own center called Dive Attitude. But besides that, I'm also instructor certifier. I run instructor courses, and if I'm not doing it, I'm also on the other end to run the examination for instructors as well. So very nice to meet you, and I'm based in KL. Very nice to meet you guys, and of course the two gentlemen here.
Awesome. Well, I am very excited to be here, and I'm very excited about our topic today because no matter what level of diver you are, there's one thing that you have to go through, and that's training. And there's different levels of training. There's good training, there's bad training, and I think it's great that we can sit up here with a few different agencies, a couple different agencies, and talk about our methods and the way we like to approach things, right? So my first question that I would like to ask, it's kind of a two-part question, is so what are things that you are looking for when it becomes a point where non-issue of certification is basically it's inevitable? And then on the other side of that, what are attributes that you are looking for that you know you can certify this person? Because as I would like to say, mastery is a very difficult thing to do in a 3 to 4 day course, right? We know we're not going to master these skills, but what are the things you're looking for that you see that this student is ready to move on? Anybody can go first.
Vincent, you go first.
Big question, first and foremost.
Let's jump right in.
Yeah, it's a very big question, and I would say the easiest entry point is that every now and then you even hear divers ask, and divers come to talk about, I learned my open water, but why is I heard you say something else as another instructor, and then you said something that my previous instructor didn't say. So is it that he's withholding certain information from me or something like that? And also on the other hand, you also hear certain things like, we do things a certain way as a center, and then the other center is not doing it. And are they breaking the standards? Are they doing certain things that says is least good? So the very important thing is the objectivity of what is the course. Because if you look at an open water course, it's never really about, it's mastery, but then you need to see what the course is designed for. Entry level is to design for, in my opinion, is designed for basic mastery, for basic survival skills as a diver. So it means that all plays in the mind. Of course, we have standard requirements for training standards, but it goes down to the fact that in the end, would you survive your equipment, your certified depth to 18 meters, and with the body in the dive sites that we tell you should be a comfortable dive site for you. So in that case, every agencies, I would believe, like SSI would have certain standards, and then let's say PADI will have certain standards. They're all above a safety line, but centers shouldn't be teaching based on the safety line because it's there to tell you, it's just like a law. When you're driving, you can't just follow the law at the bare minimum. You could be a pretty annoying driver, in a way. But it's a style of the center, it's a policy of the center that uses that base minimum and add things on top of an instructor's style that actually creates the whole package of training. But of course, then it comes back to the question is, what is competent? Is when it meets the training standards of an agency, it meets a policy of a center to keep things safe, and then it fits the instructor's style to deliver the skill. I think that's a nutshell from my side. What do you think, Anand?
So I think if we want to boil it down to, so what leads to non-certification, right? I would say that unsafe habits. So on the flip side of that, what we want is we want to develop divers who are comfortable, competent, who can look after themselves. Now, one of the biggest problems we have in the dive industry in Southeast Asia is, I think there's a heavy reliance on certified divers, putting an emphasis on dive centers and dive guides to provide safety. Well, you can, they're in charge of safety of the site. So the dive centers, dive guides should be taking you to sites that they know that are safe for your level of training. But their job is not there to look after you as a diver, right? They're not there to look after your buoyancy, to see if you can descend. All of these things should come from you, and they're checking your air, not so that you don't have to check your air. You need to check your air. They're checking your air to make sure that they plan the dive well. They turn when they need to turn, but it's not to make sure that you yourself have enough air. And so competence comes from being safe and being able to look after yourself fundamentally as a diver. So that's the first thing. And in terms of non-certification, I think I would withhold certification for people who do not, like, of course we teach pre-dive safety checks, and during the course I feel it's my responsibility to make sure divers, to emphasize on the things that I feel these are important things. So not just to learn how to do a pre-dive safety check during your course, but then ignore it when you go fun diving and expect the dive master or the dive center to do it for you to make sure everything is. No, this is your fundamental responsibility as a diver. Also knowing, so during the course, now it's actually common practice to use dive computers, but also to understand that, hey, it's actually not normal when you go fun diving in dive centers to not have your own dive computer and to be following your dive guide's computer. This is unfortunately, it is a normal practice, but what I think me and Vincent can agree on is it should not be a normal practice, right? Because everyone needs to take care of your own no decompression limits. You should not, everyone has different dive profiles. You're doing different dives as well. Everyone should be diving with their own dive computer and not relying on the dive guide's computer. And you need to be checking your own air. Your air management is fundamentally, it's not a skill. It is basically muscle memory that needs to be developed, right?
Okay. So I'm going to go off script here because you had mentioned the word fundamentals. Yeah. And what, in your mind, are some of the most fundamental skills that someone should have as they're going through training, moving through their dive training career, whether it's the newer divers, open water, through continuing education, through professional levels? What are good core fundamental skills that students can work on? Off script, apologize. That was not on the books, so throwing them for a loop.
So yeah, the things that I talked about just now is air management, knowing your air limits, when to turn the dive, when to actually go up and make a safety stop. I mean, it's very tempting in open water diving to descend, when you have less than 50 bar. Now, 999 times of the time, this would be okay, but that 1% where suddenly you get caught in a current, and then you're left with you plan to end the dive at 50 bar, and then you end up ending it with much less, without any kind of buffer for safety. That's one thing, and then the other fundamental skill I believe is I mean, it's not just about buoyancy, but also propulsion. Propulsion is a big part of diving. A lot of people, you know, like propulsion really makes or breaks your air consumption. If you have really good propulsion techniques, you can conserve a lot more air. Yeah, just by the way you move, and it's efficient moving. And knowing how to properly weight yourself is actually another core fundamental that I feel is overlooked in this industry, where a lot of people like to dive overweighted. Diving overweighted is not a good thing, right? It leads to drag, a lot of drag, bad trim, especially if you're wearing jacket BCDs. This leads to bad trim. And also, now when you overweight yourself, essentially you're creating an air bubble in your BCD, an extra air bubble that doesn't need to be there. So this air bubble is amplified every time you descend. You need to compensate for it by adding air. And when you ascend, you need to remove that air quicker than you would, or more than you would need to if you were efficiently weighted. So this is why you have uncontrolled descents. Now, uncontrolled descents happen because, usually, most of the time, happens because the diver is overweighted, not because they don't have enough weights, right? Okay, I'm gonna let Vincent have his input.
What's the question again? Fundamentals?
Yeah, so
Okay.
what fundamentals? What core fundamental skills should be focused on during training? What can people focus on as they move through their training?
I think Anand had already summed it up in a very good way, that is the skills. But then, let us take a step back, right? Because a lot of things, as new divers, the confusion is what defines proper weight? What defines overweighting? Because you know sort of, if you just use enough at the start of the dive, in the end of the dive, it's not enough. And if I am putting enough for the end of the dive, I'm overweighted at the start of the dive. So the whole point is understanding, I think fundamentals, before you go into skills, which I spoke a lot with Anand, basically that's why we ended up on the stage, is the awareness of the skills and why you do them. And I always tell divers, be difficult to me, question everything I tell you, because sometimes I take it for granted. If I say this way, you understand the logic. So, just for examples, the fundamentals of a skill, if you do open water course, if you put all the skills together, of course you have the mass clearing skills, you have the buoyancy skills, you have the theory. If you put an open water course down and it goes back to competency, it's fundamentally three components. It's about buoyancy management, it's about environmental awareness, and it's about, well, it's a strong word, but it's about equipment survival skills, because you are learning a new equipment to use it. So the key is not to do the skill and then just think, okay, I'm doing it. Know how to do it, and then sometimes you realize, okay, this is one way. I somehow see someone do it another way. And it can happen between agencies. And while it's all about the safety line, they do have different risk management and pro and cons considerations. So the question is not to get the sole answer. It's to know there are multiple correct answers. There are 1,000 ways to do a certain skill. There are 500 ways to do it safely. Maybe there's 5 that exercise accept. Doesn't mean the other 5 that party do differently is wrong. They just have different considerations. Once you see past that, skills become so much more logical, and then you stop looking at what is the next cert. You're looking at what is the next environment, what is the next dive site you are diving, what are the dive site difficulties there are, and what certification levels teach that skill for the dive site. And I would say the fundamental understanding besides the skill itself is awareness. The awareness leads to the skill eventually. That was my 2 cents on the small topic, basically.
Yeah, awareness, situational awareness, equipment awareness. So there's this thing I like to teach, and I learned this from my technical and cave diving instructor, who Vincent also knows and who's dived with before. It's an acronym called DATA. So it's awareness of depth, air as in your remaining air pressure, your time as in your NDL time, how much no decompression limit time you have left, and the last part of data is is awareness of your body, where you are, at what point of the dive you are. Do I have to let out air from my BCD now? Am I at that point because I've now I inflated my BCD at the start because I had 200 bar to compensate for that extra air. Now I have to remove that air. So to constantly have this in mind. So it's awareness, situational, and equipment awareness.
Okay, I like it. So I will go back on script now. Time constraints, high student to instructor ratios, and management pressures can become overwhelming to new or even veteran instructors. What are ways to maintain quality without compromise? I'm just throwing the hard questions out, I apologize. But
So-
these are the things that people want to know.
I think
You go first.
I think a very important thing, okay, so the question is, with the current climate and with the current package that diving is done, it's always being shown as a specific time, training time equals to a certification in the end. I think that's what a dive product is like, which is not wrong, because it's diving, especially in us as a destination, especially resort markets, has been catered to people that have limited travel time. They are at the destination for a certain amount of time. They need to go back after. In Malaysia, we are a little bit more flexible because a lot of locals actually are diving, so they will repeatedly come back to the same island. But to go to the to go to the question and answer is from a center scope, they should look at an opportunity, and also that is the payment and also the cost paid is for the training time. It's for the training time, and while fulfilling the training requirement and ticking the box of the bare minimum, or let's say the requirements of a center, of the agency, they get certified. So, of course, it's still about getting the certification in the end. This is why the time is created. But I think the core importance is that the communication between the centers, the instructors, and the student is, it's okay. Nobody will fail a course, but some people do need more time. And you can come back. Because if you change your perspective, you didn't fail an open water course if you didn't manage to do it in 3 days, 2 nights, or 4 days, 3 nights. You are still diving in the end after the cert. If you didn't get it this time, it's fine. Go back to the island with the previous center for the next trip, but take the first few dives to fulfill the remaining skill. So in that case, you put less stress on yourself on, I need to get this done, even though you need more time. And then the instructor, if they see this, they are less stressful because they know the comfort of the divers or the student is forefront, and that you, as the center, they also know they are still offering courses. They're offering fun diving. It's just that the next trip for the divers to come back, take a few dives to fulfill the skill that the divers have lacked. Or the diver can go to elsewhere and fulfill the progress. Agencies allow that. So they still have a completion record that it can be handled by a different center. So that would be my scope on timing and comfort, as to say. And is anything from you?
I think one thing all dive agencies have in common is that dive training is not time-based but performance-based, right? And what this essentially means is that So I always make it clear to students that what you're paying for is training. You're not paying for the certification, right? You pay for training, you earn the certification. Now, if that means that you need more than 3 days, it doesn't mean that you failed, as opposed to, contrary to what a lot of people feel, oh, I failed the course. No, it just means that you are not there yet, right? Some people learn at different rates. You're just not there yet. Now, if that person needs to go back, has time constraints, then I would advise them and say, hey, so if you really want the certification, we can certify you as a scuba diver, which is, a step below a full open water diver. But I actually advise them, hey, don't worry about the certification. Just come back and continue the course at a later date, and you will end up being a way more competent and comfortable diver. Yeah.
Awesome. And I believe, just to add something in, I really believe a lot of times when there's a dispute between a student and an instructor based on skill progression, it's really not a fault of any party. It's managing expectation and communications.
Right.
Because I think it's a very simple way to put it. If you go to a gym session and you tell me you can deadlift 30 kilograms, and I tell you in 4 days, 3 nights, I can make you deadlift 100. And you look at me like, you must be crazy. You want me to have sleep this? And because you can envision, you can measure the progression of 30 to 100 kilo. But the measurement of underwater comfort is a little bit more vague. So I would say if you can only lift 30 kilos, it's akin to you are a little bit afraid of water and not that comfortable as a swimmer. Promising you a 4-day, 3-night open water certification is akin to asking you daily 100 kilo in the end. It's a little bit similar to that. And I think if the communication tells you where you are based on your comfort level and what is the measurable goal of doing everything in open water, or not even putting that fully during the pre-course briefing, but during the course, communicate the progress as we go, it really makes a difference. Because when I have instructors, my candidates ask me, they've seen certain students complaining and something, I wouldn't want to put it that is beneath me for that to happen, but I really realized that communication of expectations go a long way. Because an instructor, if they take on the responsibility and say, I want to fulfill your progression without communicating, they increase the intensity. The student won't see that the instructor is trying to push the progress. They see the instructor suddenly becomes difficult. He's trying to put it on me. I don't know why my instructor becomes very rushed. But then it's the best intention from the instructor's side. And it's the best intention from the diver side to also learn. It's just that people have different comfort level. And if you let something that is impartial, which is time constraint, plays a role into you in increasing intensity, and then the student feels struggled, then it's a communication issue. Because I believe if you put it clearly that you have two choices, I'll try to push progress, but I would increase intensity, or you want me to keep the previous pacing to ensure your comfort, I believe the student will take the latter. Or even they agreed on the increased intensity, it's an agreed condition between two parties. So it's about choices and it's about communication in the end.
Yeah, it is definitely about managing expectations and communicating from the very beginning to a student diver that, hey, like, learning takes, everyone learns at different rates. Depends. I mean, sometimes we get divers who they can swim, but they have never been in the ocean before. They've never seen the ocean, right? So comfort levels can vary. Or if they've snorkeled before, some people come not even knowing how to swim. Now that obviously is a fundamental problem. It is a prerequisite, right? Uh, it's funny because I sometimes even train potential dive professionals who struggle with swimming, and you're wondering like, how did you get certified in the first place? So now, again, that's coming back to like, do you really need to know how to swim to dive? Yes, because what we're doing
Absolutely.
is you're basically preparing for emergency situations and all that. But coming back to managing expectations is a big part of making sure that your students know that they're not paying for the certification, and it's not something that they should expect at the end of 3 days. It's like, everyone learns at different rates.
Okay. Speaking of students and choices, I just arrived to this dive event and I'm searching for my next class. I'm searching for my next course. I'm the student, how do I know where I'm going to receive good training? How do I know that I received good training? Is there things that I can look out for, questions I can ask, things that I can do towards my next course to go in the proper direction? These are the things the people want to know.
Okay, first and foremost, I think the vibe is the first one, right? You talk to someone, you stay in the booth, it's because you like the vibe of certain people. Well, they can be very good looking in a way, maybe. So it always is the vibe, and then you connect to the person, and maybe the way they approach you fits your understanding of a course, fits your expectation of a course, and then of course it comes to the location, and then in the end of course comes back to the pricing. In the end, just know one thing, that if you're in a dive show and all dive packages, because diving are so transparent nowadays with the training time, just want to put it, because Anand and I represent two very different type of training in Malaysia in terms of location. So I'm KL based and Anand is, I think, most island based, right? So I would say KL based. The pricing tends to be a little bit higher because we are dealing with a different kind of logistics, and then we are also having, let's say, we are having pool sessions in the swimming pool. So we manage certain sessions differently, but in the end it all comes back down to, let's say, in water time. So it's almost measurable with the pricing of whatever you see, almost measurable to how much total time you have, how much total dive you have, and also, of course, in the island you also factor in accommodations and stuff. So I would say just find the ones that fit your budget, and then find the ones that, but in the end, find the ones that connect to you the most, the ones that you feel the most comprehensive in terms of explaining. You like the way they explain, go for it. If it's within your budget, go for it. So it's I would say that also plays a bigger role than the pure costing itself. Yeah.
I think building on from what Vincent said, underwater time really is a massive part of learning how to dive. So I think if there's one question you should ask training facility, if you're for any course for that matter, even at the professional level, even if you're learning how to technical dive, cave dive, and especially at the open water level, the question you should be asking is not how fast can I get my open water cert, or how fast can I. It should be, how many water sessions do you conduct? How many total hours are we going to spend underwater? If there's one question you should be asking, this is the question, right? It's not about how can I do it in 2 days. No, because you are probably not going to be a safe diver after 2 days. I can honestly tell you I won't be able to train someone, to dive comfortably in 2 days. But give me maximum underwater time with anyone, this person will be a comfortable diver, right?
So I think to add that in also, in a certain way, change the perspective is that you are still paying to dive, right? Either is it a course or either is it future dives. You are still paying to dive. Otherwise, why are we having the certification? So, if it's a little bit more expensive with more water time before the certification, take it as a learning process, take it as a log time, take it as your, just like a pilot with a fly time. It still goes, it still tops up into your total experience, be it before or after the certification. And the fact is that if it's done in that way, you won't have to rush through a very compact skill up back-to-back kind of process, and then you can do skills and then you can swim around. We have the allowance to bring you to swim around, and then you can do the next skill instead of getting it very detached and condensed in a full skill package, and then you have maybe 5 minutes to swim around. Okay, now we are done up, so we are going to the next dive, or we're going to the next pool session. So it really, from a training standpoint, it really makes a difference how much time I have, especially in the confined water. It means that how much time I can afford the diver to breathe underwater, to find and to accustom to all the new skills and let it set in. And I put it that between skill intervals, if you always have time to swim, it really makes a difference for the newly applied skill to set in, instead of now letting the cognitive awareness goes to a full set of skill again with totally different objectives, totally different points of practice again. So they can breathe, and then before that, okay, now we do a mass clearing skill. After that, now let's go into a buoyancy skill. So everything has an interval for things to set in. So I would say though, in water time allows us to do it, just to be specific why we say a longer time is better.
Think about when you learn how to drive a car, and you know you have to go through a certain number of hours with your driving instructor before, and the driving instructor actually then assesses your ability to then take the exam, right? And then you have to independently pass an exam in order to get your driving license. Now in scuba diving, you don't have to independently sit an exam. You go through the training with the instructor, and then the instructor then decides whether or not you're ready. So, but think about when you learn how to drive a car. Like after you got your license, did you feel like, oh, I still need my driving instructor to sit next to me? I mean, maybe you're not comfortable enough yet to drive on the highway at speeds of 120, but you're competent enough that I can drive. I can drive. I'm just building my confidence level, but I don't need my driving instructor next to me. So that's kind of like how you want to approach dive training as well.
I'm still not comfortable driving 120 kilometers down. I'm just saying. So one last question, and I guess we'll take questions. What is the best piece of advice that you could give to a student looking for their next course? And I know we've answered a few of these questions now, but if you had the one takeaway for a student to go away with, what is the best piece of advice you could offer?
I think depends on the course that you're doing. I think you should choose an instructor who is really passionate and still passionate about diving, training, and someone who approaches diving, diving in a, not just, of course, they're still having fun, they're still, and you can still see the enthusiasm in them. Pick someone who still has it, and safety is a big thing as well. So make sure safety is emphasized, and underwater training time. I cannot emphasize this anymore, but maximum underwater time is the way to go.
So I'll just take that and then I'll just say, okay, I agree everything. And another piece of advice that I've been giving a lot at my booth already, and then people have this mind opening and say, oh, so that's how it can be. So open water is a fundamental for every diver, because it's how the industry recognize if you are good to dive. But after open water, and let's say even after advanced, stop looking, unless you have a very clear goal, you want to become a dive master, you want to become a technical diver, then after your advance, there's no more next cert, fundamental cert, or compulsory certs to do, unless you have a very clear goal where you want to be. So it means that Malaysian dive sites are what I call very advanced friendly or very open water friendly, but know that it's because our dive sites are relatively simple, especially I would say Perhentian is relatively simple, Redang is relatively simple if you look at the general scope of dive sites. A very good example of a difficulty spike would be something like, well, Pulau Tengah have very beginner friendly dive sites, but a lot of dive sites start having drops. The currents you start getting strong currents and you no longer have a shallow descent. You are dropping into a deeper depth, for example. And a lot of those skills, although an advanced diver can handle, a lot of them actually links into a very specialized skill sets that if you don't do the specialty of the dive site, you do not learn unless you pick up along the way. So, for example, if you want to learn about deep descent and skills to descend with a group to, let's say, 30 meters, it's not done in an advanced course. It's, let's say, in a specialty course. So I'm not saying that you should aim for specialty course from now on, but know the environment you are diving. Know that there are potential skills that you might not have yet. It's not because your previous instructor never teach you, it's because you never come across a center that has a dive site like this and offer a course for the dive site. So the easiest way to look at it is, know what is your bucket list, know that the skills required for the bucket list, and go for the skills. So learn the skill for the dive site before the environment forces it onto you. So that's what I would say. And you can practice, but then if you don't know what the dive site requires, you can be practicing the wrong thing, and you can be pretty good after practicing, but you're pretty good at the wrong thing. So practice doesn't always make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. That's how I put it. So that's a little bit 2 cents from my side. Look for the dive site, look for the skill sets, and then learn.
So a question I should have asked is, as we leave this stage, we'll take questions here in a second, sorry. Where can I find you guys if I want to chat more about dive training? What booths are you at?
So my booth is at the Avelo booth. I'm here showcasing a new diving system called Avelo. So come and see us. So I can't remember the booth number, but just over there.
And my booth is right behind the SSI main booth. It's A103. If you want to know a little bit about specialties, what it's about, what you can learn, feel free to drop by. Doesn't have to end up with the closing, but I'm more than happy to share as well. So that's where you can find me at A103.
Awesome, awesome. And you can find me right over there at the Tech Deep Asia, Gaia 1 and Freediving Sulawesi booth. But is there any questions anybody has for us? Gentleman with the hand up, yes.
Are we giving out mics to the floor audience to ask questions? Yeah, there's a mic, yeah.
Hello. Hey, I'm Eng Han here. So, you know, you talk a lot about things that are aspirational, like having good propulsion, in water time, etc. What's causing the gap right now between like industry common practice of focusing on certifications versus what you all are saying up here right now? And 2 questions here. One is, what are you doing personally to change this within your own agency? And number 2, what can the audience do to change like the perception of others around us as well?
Can I just answer one of your questions first? So Vincent and I are up here not representing our respective agencies, right? Just to put it out there. I'm not representing, I mean, yes, I'm a PADI course director, but I'm not here speaking on behalf of PADI, neither is Vincent speaking on behalf of SSI, right? And what are we doing personally? As a dive center owner, so over the last few years, I've made sure that underwater time is maximized, and so in my dive center anyway, the standard open water course is conducted over 8 underwater sessions of minimum 1 hour each. Depends on the number of people in the course. It's a minimum of 1 hour. So I actually I get annoyed at my instructors if they spend anything less than an hour per session. So, and it's 8 sessions minimum in total. So that's what I'm doing personally.
So
what is
Anand,
the
I listened to your podcast on Shaft and also Nick's podcast,
Right.
And it was admirable how you're saying at the end of the last like open water dive, you want to make sure they're independent as well. That's what you said on Sham's podcast. And it's great what you're doing in your own thing, but then like what's stopping the entire agency from adopting and what you're doing, right?
So, so just to ask you, are you personally a dive professional or?
Oh no, I'm not.
Okay,
Yeah.
but if you look, so if I showed the training standards to you of probably all the dive agencies, it's on the last dive. It's actually the expectation is that you are supposed to be diving like independently without the help of the instructor. So that is actually the expectation of the agencies themselves. Now the problem is the translation of the training curriculum into practice. Now there's a lot of agency bashing that goes on. Now it is actually not the fault of the agency. Now if I were to give you a seminar on what actually is required of the training agencies, they all have a very, very high standard. It is the translation of that curriculum at the moment, and that is the gap, right?
I think a very important thing is that also why we are here is I used to work directly for SSI, and then my job is then to let centers see what are the training products can be packaged differently and what are the marketing alternatives to communicate with the divers to show the differences. And this is what exactly is the pitch or what we have been doing. But then also in this case, I would say a very important thing is to educate the diver level to see that there are alternatives to courses, because a lot of courses now, here and now, and what you call a structure of courses we have is a very typical of, let's say, a travel product. But it doesn't mean it has to, which is not wrong itself, because the timing allocated is also relatively, let's say, ample. Of course, you do have certain extreme examples. But then in the end, if the centers offers some alternatives to divers that do have time, and the divers really see that way, that it's all about underwater time being offered, and if they do have a travel time, if they visit the island, to take that, by all means be open-minded to take it, and then it will raise I would say the varieties of the industry. You do have people that with less time constraint, then they would actually do a longer course, and then know that 4 day 3 nights and 2 day 3 day 2 nights are not the necessity. It has other options. That's how I would say. And centers are starting to do that. Centers are starting to offer more specialty courses as well. So if you start inquiring as a diver on specialty courses on the dive sites, centers that don't offer it will start looking at it as a potential, let's say, upgrade pathway. And then you can learn about the dive site, you can learn the skills about the dive site, and the centers actually will be more sustainable as well. And I would say that would be a perfect ecosystem in an ideal scenario.
Is that okay? Do you like that answer?
Do you no? Are you satisfied with the answer, or?
No, I mean like, so shouldn't then Vincent, you mentioned like, hey, people are like time limited and stuff, right? And you mentioned about managing expectations. Then should the industry not say like, oh, with this 3 days or 2 nights, right? You probably won't be able to certify. But the reality is that
Absolutely.
there are many places that are like, yeah, 3 days, 2 nights. Then
Absolutely. So this is the whole genesis of this whole thing. Is we want to create awareness that, hey, this needs to change. This is why we're up here talking about this. We feel that this is something that needs to change. Is the expectations created by the dive centers themselves, saying that, hey, Yeah, you can do your open water training in one confined water session of 2 hours, and then you can go to the island and do your 4 dives. A confined water session does not, it is not done in 2 hours, right? It is a minimum of 4 to 5 hours spread over multiple sessions.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. I think that's all the time that we have.